So with that, we are about to invite our first speaker. The first one is going to come from the company called Rezilion, and to share with us more about evaluating the large language model open source security landscape. And it's my pleasure to invite to the stage Yotam Perkal. He's the Director of Vulnerability Research in Rezilion. Please, Yotam.
So hi everyone. First of all, great to be here. I think it's a great week all around. I just came from B-Sides, TLV yesterday, also AI Week and Cyber Week in the beginning of the week. So much great content, so much great minds coming to share knowledge and learn and advance our industry. So it's great for me to be a small part of that. Before we dive in, a little bit about myself. So yeah, for the last almost 5 years, I've been at Rezilion, leading the research team in my last role. A few weeks ago, the company or the product was acquired by GitLab, and now I'm working on a new venture. Before that, I've been at PayPal doing data science and security research around threat intelligence and insider threat. And overall, I'm involved in the security community with everything that has to do with open source security, supply chain risk, vulnerability management. And generally speaking, been interested in this space of whether it's protecting machine learning at the time, before it was AI or generative AI, from cyber attacks, and using ML or AI to improve cybersecurity defenses. Okay, so let's dive in. So first of all, as with any new technology, on the one hand, it brings opportunity, but on the other hand, it comes with new risks. And AI is not different. This is kind of expedited by the fact that people really rush to market. Everyone wants to be the first out there with their AI, generative AI offering. And oftentimes the security consideration, the security aspects of it are being left behind or neglected, which for attackers is ripe ground for attacks. And there were numerous examples of tools being released into the wild, new commercial offering based on AIs, only to be then later pulled back either because they had security risks, or they had misalignment issues, or they had privacy issues. So this is kind of a pattern that we see. This is just one example from Google Gemini. How many of you have remember this in specific case? Okay, so not a lot. I'll briefly describe it. So Gemini initially had the capability of generating images from Google, but as you can see on the left, when it was asked to draw, when I asked it, this is actually from my kind of experimentation, but there are a lot of even more funny or interesting examples online. To generate a realistic image of a Viking, then we get, in the sake of diversity, a few Vikings that are not really historically accurate. And then when we say, okay, draw me please a realistic image of a black woman, then no problem, we get 4 images. But when we say the same thing for a white woman, then Gemini claims that it's against Google's AI principles to create content that reinforces harmful stereotypes or biases. So yeah, an overly woke model, and that was quickly retracted back to the drawing table, and still Gemini today, it's been I think 3 months, and they still haven't instantiated that option. So that's a small anecdote, but there are a lot of risks that come with these new models and capabilities. But I have to say, this is from a resource called OWASP Top 10 for LLM applications. So they map out in different segments the security risks revolving or related to those to those fields. So a lot of the issues that you see here are not really directly related to AI, right? So you see insecure output handling. This is a general security concerns as it manifests in the LLM world. But training data poisoning there are things that are more kind of model related or AI related, but a lot of the things here, insecure plugin design, sensitive information disclosure, those are things that are general security risks. They just manifest a bit differently. And today's talk is going to focus around mainly the supply chain vulnerabilities. That's kind of the aspect that I'll try to drill down into. So let's start. Okay, I see the alignment issue here as well. But this image that you see here is basically what it depicts is kind of the popularity of 6 different open source libraries. So as these commercial models got released, immediately after, in tandem, we saw a huge boom, explosion of new projects and models in the open source world, either trying to help with using those commercial tools in a more flexible way, or kind of as a glue between the different commercial models. So we have 3 models here that you see from the colors on the right. With the y-axis is the GitHub stars, which is a measure of a popularity of an open source repo. So you see that projects like, if we take, for example, Flutter or TensorFlow, which took around 8 years or more to get to a popularity of about 100,000 stars, these projects, the 3 projects which are AutoGPT, LangChain, and Ulama, which I'll remember the name because we'll address it in further down the talk, they got to the same level. You see the yellow line, it's AutoGPT, 150,000 stars. It took it about a year. What, for example, the green one is Flutter, took almost 9 years to get to the same level of popularity. But does popularity equal quality, maturity, or security posture? So not really, and this is kind of what we sought out to explore. So we did kind of a benchmark research. We took the 50 most popular LLM, GPT-based open source project and analyzed their security posture. And the criteria for those projects that we selected is they were 10 months old or less, so new projects related to the topics of LLM, ChatGPT, etc. And they had at least 3,000 stars, GitHub stars. And then we compared it to kind of a second group of projects, which are the critical projects as defined by a work group that is responsible for making sure that they meet good security practices because they're critical, because they are either used on critical systems, very popular, very widespread, etc. And the method we use to evaluate them is a tool called the OpenSF scorecard, which is basically what it tries to do is it has certain checks or heuristics for the security posture of that open source project. Just to give a few examples, so we have here to get a better sense of what it checks for. 2 examples. One is the same AutoGPT with a missing go, it seems. And the other one is Distreless. The Distreless project got an 8.2 score and AutoGPT 3.7. So what does it mean in the real world? So as you see, for example, code reviews. So that repository that doesn't have the concept of doing code reviews for code that is introduced into the library. Dangerous workflow is present, or mitigation against dangerous workflows are present in the Distreless project and is not in the AutoGPT, etc., etc. So there are various checks. Each check has kind of a weight of what's the criticality level of that check, and at the end of the day, it correlates to a score. So what did we find? Those are the results. You see here the bubbles. Each bubble represents a project. The orange ones are the LLM-based projects. The bigger the bubble or the higher up it is, it means it has more stars. So you see the 150,000 orange one. This is the same AutoGPT that we saw in the first graph. And as you can see, this kind of showed it, how it progresses through time. We monitored it for around 3 months with the same score. So you see it moves slightly to the right, but still, generally speaking, you can see that in terms at least of this proxy of OpenSF scorecard, the security posture of these projects is less than the ones in purple, which are the critical projects, and the 7 kind of bluish ones are critical projects that also utilize the OpenSF scorecard in order to improve their security posture, so they are more farther to the right. And another kind of interesting trend that we saw is the correlation between risk and popularity. So the red and blue lines are for the critical projects and the subset of critical projects that are using scorecard. So you see the more popular the project is, the higher the score on average. But in the LLM-based project, we see the exact opposite trend. So popular projects tend to have even a lower scorecard score. And again, this is simply a reflection of the fact that they don't prioritize security in their practice. And one thing that is kind of sad, but that's the reality to see, that utility will always trump security. So these projects, I took 2 examples, OTGPT and another one called Private GPT with 37,000 stars, and AutoGPT with 150,000 stars. It's even more today, but at the time of the research. So you see that they explicitly, I'm not sure if you were able to read, but I'll read it out. They explicitly stated in their repository that this is an experiment, not a polished application or product, just an experiment. May not perform well in complex real-world business scenarios. In fact, if it actually does, please share your results. They'll be surprised if it does. Again, experimental may cause data loss, system failure, or any other issues, etc., etc., etc. And the other one, it states it's a test project, not production ready. It's not meant to be used in production. So even though we have all these warnings from the maintainers, from the authors of these projects, again, it's usable. People used it. We saw it, very widespread usage of these projects. And this is not something theoretical, right? So we also saw example in the wild. You see the top left-hand side headline, hacking AutoGPT and escaping its Docker container. And another one on the right is LangChain, which is, again, one of the projects that we saw earlier in the first graph. And a lot of other kind of examples. And for most of those examples, it's not like a fancy AI attack, prompt injection, taking advantage of hallucinations. No, it's simply not adhering to security best practices. A lot of times it's exploiting deserialization vulnerability in the pickle format in which the model is saved. And Hugging Face is kind of becoming the front end of these models, because if GitHub is the go-to source for open source projects and tools, then Hugging Face is kind of the same thing for ML models. And we already saw, this is from this month, these 2 attacks that are actually taking advantage. One was discovered by Wiz, the other one by Trail of Bits. So even taking advantage of changing the model weights in order to affect the output of the model, which is also very tricky to identify as a user. But in the end of the day, again, it's the same kind of supply chain attacks. And this quote is from the Wiz article. So AI security measures have been largely sidelined in favor of focusing on the transformative power of this technology and its potential to revolutionize the way business gets done. So this is a trend that I see, that we see kind of across the board. And I think that this is the time for us, to talk about and start thinking and working towards secure by design AI is now. The more we'll continue to prioritize the time to market over security, things will only get worse. And we have things that you can actually do. So first, education and awareness. Understand first what are the capabilities of these models, but also what are their limitations. And stay actively informed in AI security developments, do threat modeling, security by design, design, prioritize security in the system architecture when you design or implement these models. And there are a few frameworks like Google's SAFE framework or NEMO guardrails from NVIDIA that you can utilize for that purpose. Strengthen the infrastructure in which these models run in terms of security, perform red teaming for AI systems, and obviously manage the entire provenance for these supply chain attacks. So we're tracking the origins, the changes in models, in data, AI bomb, model cards. There are things that are already in existence, but are still not very actively used or even very well defined yet, but there's ongoing work on these areas. And I will say that lastly that as these systems become more integrated in our everyday lives, the attack surface gets bigger and bigger. Attackers tend to go for the weakest links. So once AI becomes the weakest link, as we saw in this case, and it's not, again, because of AI a lot of the times, it's simply not enough focus is put on security, then attacks are inevitable. That's all for me. Thank you. Welcome to connect on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter.